Hey everyone, this is Georgia Stathis over at my YouTube channel. End of January 2026, just a couple of days before Neptune finally and permanently leaves Pisces and enters the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, on January 26th. This doesn't mean that instantly on January 26th, when we all wake up, life will be different, because it won't be different, but it will be perhaps a little clearer, a little bit more clarity about making our visions become more of a reality. And with Saturn, which is the reality-based planet very close to it, seeing some things coming that we couldn't see before. While Neptune was back and forth in the last sign of the zodiac in Pisces, especially in this last year, 2025, as we entered 2026. Now, what does that mean for everybody? Well, it doesn't mean that instantly things are going to change, but it does suggest that, especially as we move into the middle of February and the end of February of 2026, that there'll be more clarity about what really is happening in our private lives, as well as our professional lives and our political lives, and how we choose to strategize the next phase of our lives in terms of what we want to do to make something happen depends upon how well we've learned to do two things. First of all, listen without talking. I think one of the things that happens when you get planets moving into Aries, and we will have Neptune moving into Aries for 14 years, and there's a lot of people that do a lot of talking, especially on social media, on Facebook, on every place you can possibly be. Everybody does a lot of talking, but how many people are really, really listening? And one of the keys for successful strategic planning and getting things done is not only learning how to listen effectively and constructively, but also to hear what the in-between messages are between what is being said. I think that'll be actually a little bit more crystal clear as Saturn, which rules crystals and reality and clarity, moves into Aries, another Aries entry around the middle of February. And when the two of them come together at the end of February, on the 20th of February, they will be beginning a new 35 to 36 year cycle that has a lot to do with creating structure from dreams. And so when you are creating a structure from a dream, you can't just have the dream. You have to have a plan. And talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and doing nothing about it never really works. And so this first 5-6 months of 2026 is about, yes, talking about it as little as possible, I might add, because when you talk about things all the time that you're going to be doing, usually you lose the power and you don't do anything. Instead of talking to yourself or writing it down or making notes to see how something can work, and then as you become clearer and clearer with your vision, then what starts to happen is people will come into, if the values are the same, if people share the same values, they will start to come in to help you. And this is kind of what I'm seeing as an awakening thing coming up around the middle of February, because 17th and 18th of February of this year, we're going to have a big eclipse. It's going to be a new moon, new beginnings, when they do the planting, when you plant seeds, when you plant your harvest. New moon at the last degree of Aquarius, and it'll be right at the time when Uranus, which is upheaval and sudden changes or separation and fusion issues or sudden out of the blue things that happen, within that 2-day span, February 17th, February 18th, February 16th, you're going to have all this Uranian energy, which also can be things like storms, volcanoes, those kinds of things, but it can also be on a personal, from a personal perspective, an edginess, an anxiousness. It also could be, and I don't like to be just negative, it can be being in the right place at the right time for something that you've been envisioning for possibly the last 6 to 8 months, if you've had a plan. The thing about planning, I mean, everybody thinks you're going to sit down and plan the rest of your life. You're going to sit down and plan the rest of the year. Yeah, we do that. We write down some of the things we'd like to happen this year or next year or for our life. But what we often don't do is take the time to envision how we feel when we're going to do these things, rather than I'm going to do something. how you feel if you're going to be helping people or working in the community or creating a piece of art or creating a piece of theater or designing a new political landscape. We can feel as much as we want to feel. But if we don't write down some of the ways in which we would like to express ourselves in a more positive light, it doesn't always work. The way I found in my life things have worked, if I come up with an idea, I don't say, oh, this is how it's going to happen. I write the idea down or I do a treasure map. And then another idea comes and another comes. And by the way, it's a very good idea to write it down when these ideas are coming in the next 60 days to 90 days, or put them in your phone or someplace where you take notes, because a lot of the new ideas coming as Neptune on the 26th of January enters Aries and Saturn on the 13th of February enters Aries, and on February 20th, when Saturn and Neptune are conjoined in Aries, a lot of the ideas that you feel have no legs may start to get legs, and really wonderful legs, by being in the right place with the right people, which also means this is also about asking more questions and listening rather than talking. Asking people what they're about, asking people what they're interested in, asking people that you come into contact with, what are some of your interests? I mean, I think we've forgotten in many ways the art of conversation in this last 6 to 7 to 8 years. We've gotten so isolated with the internet. When we went through the pandemic, we all became cloistered in our own worlds, having only the few friends that we were with. But the world has changed a lot since the pandemic, and obviously it's changed politically on the landscape. And a lot of the interesting things that I'm seeing actually in the political landscape, especially with these planets beginning to move into Aries, which is ruled by Mars, which is people standing up for what they believe is right, is we actually see it happening in the European delegations. We see this happening in the EU. We're realizing that we have to be spiritual warriors, community warriors, soul warriors, so that change can be made. And it requires a certain level of bravery, a certain level of being willing to put yourself on the line if you believe in what you believe in and you feel it's the right thing at your deepest, deepest place. And part of getting something done, making things happen, is about talking with other people and talking with people that sometimes do not agree with us, who you might be able to find some sort of connection with in terms of real life experiences, children, education, family, food. Everybody, as different as they are, has something that they have in common, because that's the human connection. And so part of this process, this developmental process of becoming more warrior-like, strategically taking risks, is to venture out into groups that you may not have been involved with before, or getting to know some people in groups that you might be thinking of taking something in the community, a class. I think taking classes or studying new things that you've been interested in, this is all going to be quite a good thing to do as these two planets, Saturn and Neptune, come together at the end of February. Because one of the things that has historically happened every time Saturn and Neptune conjoin, yes, the Berlin Wall went down, and yes, we had the Exxon Valdez. A lot of things happened. We've had recessions during these things. But the thing that we've also seen is major changes in the world of entertainment and art and music and theater. And one of the things I was talking about a lot in the last few forecasts that I did for alexandriaibase.org, which is my foundation, my educational foundation, and for the forecasts that I did for the school, No Door School, was to talk about how historically every 35 to 36 years, music will change. Neptune rules music. It rules the arts. Saturn is form and structure. 1952, we saw rock and roll. The time before that was blues. 1989, we had new age music coming in. And you'll always see changes in theater. And what I actually see happening coming up, which I think is a really great new industry, and this is why it's nice to learn some new things, is more and more documentary work, more film work that serves more as documentaries are always educational. But because our young people are so much more online now rather than reading, seeing more like historical documentaries, things that are designed for people of all ages to learn something that they may not necessarily learn in the books that may or may not be available. And I think it's an exciting time between now, the 26th of January, and between now and late February. It does feel like we're closing a lot of doors. Sometimes it feels like that's all we're doing, is closing a lot of doors. But you have to close a bunch of doors before you open up the windows. And so with that said, this is Georgia Stathis at starcycles.com. And I hope this little short is some food for thought going forward. And if you look over here to my left, your right, I have a painting that I found actually in California, and then I sent it over here to Florida. And it's the Mad Hatter. But there's this artist, I don't know who this artist is, but at the bottom it says, "What a hole it was." So I thought it was perfect to send it for this time of year, going through what we're going through. We may be diving into a lot of rabbit holes right now, rabbit holes that will be adventurous, new things that we've never experienced, things that we need to deal with that we've refused to deal with. But what a hole it was. And sometimes when you dive into those holes, you find some amazing, amazing things. So I wish you the best, and I'll see you real soon.